The second episode of Preacher's final season is in the books, so let's talk about some of my favorite Easter eggs from Last Supper. As always, this video is filled with a ton of spoilers, so make sure you've already watched the episode and read the comic books. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? Let's begin with the biggest comic book reference from episode 2, Jesus to Sade. We've been waiting a long time for Sade to make his TV appearance, and we get a good glimpse of him in this episode. Even better news is that we'll get a whole bunch more of him in episode 3. Now in the books, Jesse, Tulip, and Cassidy make their way to Sade's mansion in San Francisco. Different location here, obviously. He was known for hosting never-ending parties filled with sex, drugs, and debauchery. Nothing was forbidden here. No rules, no morals, anything goes. I think you get the point, and I can only imagine what we're about to see in this show. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm guessing that Jesse won't be getting along with him. After watching the first episode of Season 4, I assumed that Jesse's apocalyptic vision was the Masada fortress exploding. But thanks to Nathan in the comments section, as well as clarification we received in Episode 2, we now know it's the Lost Apostle, an ancient site in Australia. Makes sense because we know that Preacher filmed in Australia this season, so it's a no-brainer that this was inspired by the 12 apostles off the country's coast. And yes, these rock formations do look like male anatomy. Who or what Jesse will find here is still up in the air. Is this where he'll finally face off against God? Or will the Saint of Killers follow him on his trip for an explosive showdown? I'm definitely hoping for a War in the Sun type encounter, but I'm sure the show will tweak this slightly. Now, these 12 apostles also tie into the episode's title, Last Supper. Of course, according to the Gospel of John, Jesus shared a meal with his apostles shortly before he was crucified. We've seen depictions of this for centuries, none more famous than Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece. So what does that all mean? I'm guessing it doesn't bode too well for Jesse once he finally arrives at the location. The episode concludes with God overseeing his entire plan. Amongst these miniatures that God is playing with, you'll find the plane, some cars, the poor dead camels, a magnifying glass, I don't even want to know how God is going to use that, Jesse's old church, and my favorite, the coffin that was used to torment and punish Jesse by his grandma in Angelville. He would spend weeks and weeks underwater in that thing. Horrible. If there's one thing that this sequence revealed, it's that Jesse's journey, every single detail of it, is all part of God's plan.
God's plan. God's plan.
I'll be honest, one of the hardest sequences for me to watch in this entire episode was when the young boy's dog was accidentally killed. It was for real this time, after Jesse commanded him to drop the gun. Some horrible luck. But we quickly learn that Jesse has a soft spot for the kid despite him conning Jesse. Perhaps Jesse can relate to what happened to the poor kid's dog. If you read the comics, you know that as a child in Angelville, Jody killed Jesse's dog and nailed it to a plank. F you, Jody. F you. Jesse immediately cussed out Jody, but when Grandma heard the profanities, she sentenced Jesse to a week in that aforementioned coffin. Later on in the books, Jesse met a dog named Skeeter at a gas station during his search for Tulip. He witnessed a local police officer kick the dog, and Jesse flipped out, punching the officer through his own car's windshield. Say whatever you want about Jesse Custer, but one thing's for sure, he's a dog lover. When Jesse makes his way to the airport and is chatting with that friendly pilot, he realizes that he's lost one of his most prized possessions, his dad's lighter, otherwise known as the Communism Lighter. Now, we've seen this lighter before in the show, and we know that Jesse went to great lengths to get it back.
I was looking for this. Took it from your daddy years ago.
Of course, this was an iconic item from the comics. It was handed down to Jesse by his father, who got it from John Wayne during the Vietnam War. By the way, when's the next time we'll get a John Wayne reference? This isn't an Easter egg, but some of you might have noticed a familiar face in the episode. During the Grail meeting, the Deputy Prime Minister from New Zealand speaks out of turn, and he's forced to commit suicide by grenade in a box, let's call it.
But I have had too much to drink.
No excuse?
That's none other than New Zealand-born actor Lani Tofu, who you might remember from Farscape.
If you try anything closer.
Enough with the Easter eggs, let's wrap up the episode with some final thoughts. First, I love seeing how the Grail is tracking down the real Humperdew. Remember, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of clones out there. In order to find the right one, they are forcing them to dance and then killing them on sight if they don't react accordingly. This may take a long time.
It's not him.
He's fit as a fiddle.
Question, did Jesse or Tulip think of how they'd protect Cassidy from that scalding hot desert sun after they broke him out of that Masada prison? Where's one of those Hoover head umbrellas when you need it? Finally, using foreskins as a facial skin treatment, I can kinda tolerate.
It's big business.
Skin grafts. Skin grafts. We know they're putting foreskin into skin grafts. It was on the Oprah Winfrey show. And they're putting it into the face creams you all use.
But when Hairstar demanded the doctor make him an ear using Cassidy's bits, well, that was just a bit too much for me. What about you? Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think of the final season of Preacher and any predictions you might have for the rest of the season. We'll be back next week with Easter eggs from episode 3. See you then.